Spoilers for Danganronpa Another, the sequel Super Danganronpa Another 2, and the 3 main games of the main series. Danganronpa Another is a duology made by the South Korean developer LINUJ, and is considered a great fangame series with compelling characters and interesting plotlines. Almost every character in LINUJ's games is used in a way that stands out compared to the main games, and most of them are quite memorable, with many being well loved by the fanbase. LINUJ is special, not just because his 2 games are excellent from a quality perspective, but from what I know, he's the only developer to have finished 2 Danganronpa fangames. With that in mind, I want to analyze one of his characters, named Yamato Kisaragi, from Danganronpa Another. A character absent for most of the game, yet he happens to be one of the most essential and important characters within the 2 games. You could almost go that far that he's actually one of the protagonists of the game, and I'm gonna elaborate on that. Before I start, quick reminder to subscribe if you like Danganronpa content, and comment your thoughts after watching. Well then, let's start. According to LINUJ, Yamato Kisaragi was the first character he designed, which is kind of ironic as this is the last new character introduced in the first game, joining the rest of the students at the end of chapter 4. His talent is the ultimate inventor. Since Danganronpa Another was finished on June 11, 2015, his character and talent is older than the ultimate inventor Miyu from Danganronpa V3, which was announced and published later, making him the original ultimate inventor. Despite sharing the same talent, they are very different characters though, as Miyu is mostly a comic relief character, while Yamato is a plot-centered character from the very moment he is introduced. Since Yamato Kisaragi has a unique role in the story due to only appearing briefly alive during the game, the best approach to look into him is by splitting his appearances within the game as a whole into 2 parts, that being the flashback scenes and the actual in-game appearances, including his scenes in chapter 6 as an alter ego. Although he's added to the roster in chapter 5, he does play a decent role in chapter 3 and 4. Before we even meet him at the end of chapter 4, he is occasionally hinted at during the killing game, similar to Mukuro Ikusaba in the main games. The first instance where we get a hint is during the ending of chapter 2, where he is imprisoned by Monokuma in a cell. Monokuma talks to him, but his lines are dots, so we don't learn much, though we do learn there is someone he loves among the group, that being his adopted sister Mikako Kurokawa. In chapter 3 we see an album of his father Hanzo Kisaragi, as well as Mikako hearing his voice, and convincing the group to investigate the area after trial 3, only to find out Monokuma moved a creature, that being Yamato, to another cell. In chapter 4 we then get a photo of Yamato himself, as well as the Kisaragi Foundation sign in the weapons room, which Mikako notices, and after a very sad trial the big reveal of him joining the group as a transfer student. Long before he gets to say his first visible line in chapter 5, both Yamato himself and his father Hanzo are often central aspects of discussions among the cast, helping characters like Rei Mikaru or Tsurugi Kinjo to figure out their situation. They also put some characters on edge, Mikako especially, who slowly but surely remembers more. In chapter 5 he's finally able to communicate with his classmates. Since he's brain damaged for most of the duration of chapter 5 however, most of his lines are nonsense, but there are some that actively show or hint at his former self. The biggest ones being his sometimes aggressive tone towards Yuki Maeda and the short scene where he turned normal, briefly before dying. His overall personality in this chapter is described by the other students as weird, which makes sense due to his brain damage. This obviously does exclude Mikako since she already knows who he is. Even in a state he couldn't really be considered a threat, his character is handled in a way to deceive both the player and in-game characters that he is the mastermind. Obviously after the revelations of chapter 6, he clearly was not, making him a red herring, which makes it even more devastating that we learn he is actually the one to save his classmates, multiple times in the flashbacks that is, and at the end of trial 6 as an alter ego. His dedication to help others that goes beyond death is one of his most remarkable character traits. And yet despite his never-ending good intentions, he manages to have one of the worst fates among the Danganronpa Another cast. Before he even gets to meet his friends and sister during the killing game, he is imprisoned and isolated, while suffering from brain damage, which is a tragic turn of events for a character as intelligent and social as Yamato. He then unfairly dies in chapter 5 through a detonator from a setup from Monokuma. In the trial right after his death, his sister Mikako is wrongfully singled out and ultimately dies because of it. Keep in mind that his father Hanzo Kisaragi also passed away briefly before the story begins, which means his entire family died. Despite dying in Chapter 5, Yamato manages to influence the ending of Chapter 6 in form of his alter ego. His alter ego shuts down Monokuma and saves the 3 remaining students from dying by telling them to not give up. By leading them to the helicopter, they escape the facility. Kisaragi's alter ego is left behind as the space program is the AI of Monokuma. Thanks to his alter ego, some parts of Yamato's real self are shown to the player during the killing game. In the flashback scenes, he is revealed to be the one bringing the cast to the facility in an attempt to save them from dying to Monokumas. While doing so, he saves his classmates multiple times, especially Mikako Kurokawa. In an ironic twist, his plan however fails in the end, as he brought 2 ultimate despairs to the facility, that being Utsuro and Akane Taira, who then slaughter everyone except the 79th class in the building, and the killing game begins, after they stole everyone's memories. After showcasing his appearances, it is now crucial to dive deeper into his character, and there's a lot. As an adventurer, he naturally is a very intelligent and gifted person, being the only character from the first game to receive an S tier in both intelligence and investigation from LINUJ. This raises the question how well he would have performed in the trials, and if he would have been able to solve the Chapter 3 case of the sequel to an extent Shobai Hashimoto did, or even exceed him. Unfortunately, Yamato never participated in a trial during Danganronpa Another, so we don't know his capabilities. A cool and yet sad fun fact is that LINUJ stated there is no material of an execution for him, which means he was never intended to participate in a trial. Kisaragi comes from a lineage of ultimate inventors, and just like his grandfather and father Hanzo Kisaragi, he entered Hope's Peak Academy. Given Yamato is the 3rd representative of the Kisaragi Foundation, it should come to no surprise that this is a character able to lead others and hold responsibility. This is pretty much backed up by the flashback scenes. Generally speaking, he is a very considerative character, which for one is proven by the many inventions he made before his demise, like a device to counter amnesia, and the fact he managed to succeed in saving his class temporarily by using a vehicle that is able to carry 16 people at once. As someone that loves to write down his thoughts on notes, he is a character following structure and plans. This can be seen in Chapter 6, where we find his notes and see up to 50 entries retelling events of the past and giving insight into his thoughts. Additionally, all of these actions where he is his real self before and during the killing game show that he is a well-hearted and heroic man, always trying to look after the people he cares the most about. Like every other character, Yamato Kisaragi also has 3 time events. Due to his short appearance within the main game as he joined the others at the end of Chapter 4 and dying immediately afterwards in Chapter 5, he only has a few free time events. By our logic, he has the least amount of free time events from all the characters from Danganronpa Another. Before even able to play his free time events, there is a scene where Yamato clearly shows resentment towards Yuki Maeda. Once Yuki talks to him and Yamato turns more friendly, his free time events are unlocked. In the first free time event, Yamato shows clear distress when talking to Yuki. In the second free time event, Yamato and Yuki have a conversation about a diary from the library, which triggers Yamato to remember things. He's also called the Mastermind by Yuki. In the last one, they have a short chat where Yamato tells Yuki is his friend. While growing closer to him, you receive a photo of a certain person, that being Mikako. This gets to show the deep connection both of them have for each other. Once his free time events are finished, if you talk to Yamato once again, you receive a text where he says he wishes Yuki to remain in the way he is right now, which is a huge hint for a later reveal in Chapter 6. Yamato has also a special interaction during his free time events, where if you give him a special gift, it unlocks a secret chat between Yuki and Yamato, where Yamato talks a bit about the gift. That being an invention he built when he was younger, but it wasn't suited for marketing. Overall, his free time events serve to give a little bit more insight into his character, although all of his free time events are forged by the fact he has brain damage. They also serve as a way to hint at future reveals, like the fact Yuki isn't what he seems like. The skill you receive after completing his free time events is a strong skill only being usable during Chapter 5 and 6 in the trials. Another aspect worth looking into is the inspiration for this character. While Yamato Kisaragi is a character with lots of unique traits, It should come to no surprise that LINUJ took some elements for his characters from other characters of the main games, in his case that mostly being Mukuro Ikusaba. Both Mukuro and Yamato are introduced as a transfer student, roughly during chapter 5, also dying shortly after. In both cases they are suspected to be the mastermind, which holds true for Mukuro but does not for Yamato. They also share the fact that they have a sibling that is important to the game's overall story. For Mukuro, that being the mastermind Junko Enoshima, and for Yamato, Mikako, who knows things the rest of the group doesn't. A thing Danganronpa Another does quite well is mirroring Trigger Happy Havoc in many ways. This can be seen by the fact that the mastermind is the protagonist, in this case Yuki Maeda or Utsuro, and a non-stop debate where Utsuro shoots down the hope of the survivors during the final trial in chapter 6, which is a direct reference towards the end of Trigger Happy Havoc, where Makoto shoots down the despair. With that in mind, it's likely LINUJ wanted to mirror the despair sisters in the form of the Kisaragis, by making a sibling pair who actually save the group instead of dooming them. As mentioned earlier, Yamato serves as a red herring to bait both the player and characters into believing he's the mastermind. This is also the same for Mukuro Ikusaba, but as I mentioned earlier, he is not the mastermind. A minor part of Yamato Kisaragi's character, that being his alter ego, was surely also inspired by Hihiro Fujisaki, as both of them happen to create an alter ego that saves the group in the end. Outside of the main games, LINUJ has claimed the inspiration for Yamato Kisaragi came from Jotaro Kujo, a character from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Jotaro is a heroic character, which aligns perfectly with Yamato's role in his respective game. All of this suggests and backs up the claim that he intended Yamato Kisaragi to be a central aspect of the plot with major contributions towards the story. This is also reinforced by the fact he was the first character LINUJ thought of when developing the game. Of course, given Yamato Kisaragi is a plot-centric character, it is important to see what relations he has to the other characters. It should be no surprise the closest character to Yamato Kisaragi is his adopted sister Mikako Kurokawa. During chapter 6 we learn how Mikako got adopted into his family and they grew up together. Both of them care a lot about each other. This can be seen in Yamato's notes during chapter 6 where he directly states he is suspecting Yuki and Akane, yet trusts Mikako's judgment of the two, allowing them to stay. In the flashback during the final trial, Yamato also saves Mikako from a Monokuma, who was about to kill her. During chapter 5 there is a room which is locked by a password only Yamato knows. The password being 0430, which can be translated into April 30th, which is Mikako's birthday. All of this makes it even more tragic that he ultimately dies in this room, and Mikako is framed for his murder. Just like normal siblings, they occasionally fight, like in one scene of the flashback during the final trial, but it's always clear they got each other's back, when the time calls for it. According to LINUJ, the relationship between Yamato and Mikako would be one of an ideal couple, which raises the question if there was or would have been any romance between the two. Another character Yamato is quite close with is Tsurugi Kinjo, the antagonist of most of the game, who he considers his best friend and a little brother to him. Kinjo states they used to play chess against each other a lot, with Kisaragi always winning against him. It is safe to say Kisaragi had a great impact on Kinjo as a character, and heavily affected him, since Tsurugi also mentions how Yamato turned him into a more open person. LINUJ noted he wished he could have shown more of Tsurugi's and Yamato's relation, but couldn't due to Tsurugi being absent for most of the chapter 5. Well, he shot himself, and Yamato being dead during chapter 6. Tsurugi has nothing but respect for Yamato and sees him as someone he can ask for advice. This is being shown in his Utopia in the Omake mode of Super Danganronpa Another 2, where he asks Yamato what to do. Further proof is obviously the fact that he honors Yamato by calling his organization he hinted at during the ending of Danganronpa Another the Kisaragi Foundation. Yamato himself sees Kinjo as someone he can rely on and asks for help as well, as he does mention the idea of talking to him and Rei Mikaru about what happened to the student council in the flashbacks. Yamato's classmates, Akane and fake Yuki excluded, almost certainly consider him to be a kind of superhuman, with Teruya admitting he is a great human being in the flashbacks. The same goes for his subordinates, who respect him and describe him as a mature young man that they are glad working for. Unlike everyone else, Yamato is the only character to suspect fake Yuki and Akane before they reveal themselves in the flashbacks, which is a testament of his deductive abilities. In an intermission of the final trial, where Yuki can choose between the two doors, Yamato tells him that he understands him in some ways, that he is still very angry with him. But despite all of this, Yamato still considers Yuki Maeda to be his friend. This is shown in the free time events as well as the short scenes before the free time events in chapter 5. Although not really present in Danganronpa Another as an alive character, Yamato Kisaragi does have one of the biggest influences on both Danganronpa Another and the sequel Super Danganronpa Another 2. He is indirectly responsible for both games happening in the first place. Had he not saved the 79th class, all of them except himself would have died long before the Killing Game. Please keep in mind this is not saying he's an evil character, it's more like other characters can even act because of Kisaragi having affected them in some way or another. He is absolutely a hero, don't get me wrong. During the first Killing Game, his existence alone is a topic the other characters talk about a lot, making him a centered character without having said a single line. Thanks to his existence, characters like Rei Mekaru also figure out most of the situation. Once he actually appears, he is suspected as the mastermind, only to be the one to defeat the mastermind through his actions by taking over the Monokuma AI, shutting down the Monokumas and saving the 3 survivors. Obviously, the Kisaragi Foundation continuing to exist, thanks to the 3 survivors being saved by Kisaragi, is the reason many smaller characters like Ryutaro stay alive during chapter 6.5. Inside of a story, the protagonist makes key decisions that affect the plot, influencing the story. Because of the reveal that the protagonist of Danganronpa Another, Yuki Maeda, is actually the villain of the game, Yamato Kisaragi automatically turns into the character best suited for the hero of the story. According to LINUJ, Kisaragi would have been the classic protagonist in a different story. Likewise, in Super Danganronpa Another 2, it is revealed the real Mikado Sonochi used the backup files from Kisaragi's alter ego to learn about the death of Utsuro, which is the reason the Killing Game happens in a simulation to revive Utsuro. The existence of the Kisaragi Foundation during Super Danganronpa Another 2 is also the reason why the mastermind reveal happens during the prologue. Characters like Yuruku Kabuya and Iroha Nichiue also survived the Killing Game thanks to Shobai Hashimoto shutting down the program, because of a deal he made with Tsurugi Kinjo, the director of the foundation. You see, had Tsurugi Kinjo not survived Danganronpa Another, all of this wouldn't have happened. Even during Kinjo's Utopia, Kisaragi manages to be a guidance for Kinjo and someone he seeks help of. By that, Yamato Kisaragi, although not surviving himself, is directly responsible for the survival of at least 3 characters, that being Rei, Teruya and Tsurugi, and indirectly responsible for the survival of every major and minor character that got saved by the Foundation. Arguably, his influence on the entire universe is thereby incredibly high. Apart from the backstories of the members of Void that are naturally heavily tied to Utsuro, everything else inside of the 2 games is tied to both Utsuro and Yamato Kisaragi in some way or another. Yamato is most definitely underestimated in his influence on both games, especially for Super Danganronpa Another 2, and surely can be considered a main character in his respective universe. The last thing I want to talk about is Divine Luck itself. Divine Luck, or luck from the heavens, is one of the core driving powers within the Danganronpa Another series. Because of Utsuro's survival until chapter 6 and thereby Divine Luck being an existing force, there is a question whether or not Yamato Kisaragi's actions were influenced by Utsuro's will. We know from direct lines of Utsuro and Akane that him and her surviving the Killing Game was also due to the influence of Divine Luck. This can very much be backed up by the fact Akane survived a sudden attack from Kizuna in chapter 2. We also know Utsuro wanted all other participants dead. By all of that, it is not completely unreasonable to assume Yamato's plans and inventions could have failed due to Utsuro's luck. This should naturally be a possibility, as Yamato is a very intelligent character, and it is stated the Kisaragi Foundation and their inventions are a century ahead to the rest of the world. What could speak against it, however, is the claim that Yamato Kisaragi could have naive tendencies, which would lead to this result as well. Overall, this is a quite difficult topic to analyze, and an even more difficult topic to find a logical solution for. But regardless, I wanted to share my thoughts on it, and maybe you guys have other ideas. He fixes a few issues a character like Mukuro Ikusaba has, where he manages to stay relevant and engaging despite having not much active appearance. To me, Yamato is a character done right that follows a trope of being introduced late but hinted at for most of the game. And I like Mukuro. But I don't think I'm in the minority when I say she isn't a very fleshed out character if you don't read Danganronpa If or watch Danganronpa 3. Kisaragi, on the other hand, is a cool character with so much depth to him, even in your first playthrough. LINUJ did a great job with the character he developed first. A hidden protagonist of a tragic story that shows bringing good in a world full of evil makes you a bright star others can look up to. And that's my analysis for Yamato Kisaragi, a character defined by absence. The Danganronpa Another games have so many strong characters and concepts that there are many ways to make videos on it. Personally, if this video does well enough, I'll probably make a video on Divine Luck itself, or another character analysis on someone like Rei Mikaru or Shobai Hashimoto. If you managed to be here up to this point, you probably enjoyed this video. In that case, subscribing or leaving a comment would help me out a lot. I'd love to discuss Yamato Kisaragi more in the comments, since he's a character I really like a lot, and given the Another series is so complex, I'm sure you have much to offer as well. Be free to comment. In any way, thank you for watching. See you next time.